Well, to give us some perspective on the passage of the 2018 budget, we've got Bayo Rotimi, who is a financial consultant. Thank you for coming out this morning.
Pleasure.
Well, year in, year out, we go through this budget passage, and Nigerians expect a lot to happen as a result of the budget. But maybe I should start asking, by asking you, with respect to the passage of this particular budget, what distinguishing or distinctive, or is there any key difference in terms of the strategy to either implement or fund the budget this year?
Thank you very much. In my view, not a lot has changed.
Oh.
It appears to be business as usual. Even the process of normalizing the budget year, moving from January to December, we seem to be struggling. So we have a budget that is similar to what we had last year. We had a budget last year that ran from June of 2017 and is expiring at the end of this month. We're going to have another budget, hopefully, that will start running from the 1st of June this year, and it will also run into next year. So the question is implementation. That has always been the sore point. To what extent has government been able to implement? Now, if you look at the Budget Office, they have a website, and I think they've done a decent job thus far. But if you look into their website, you will see an implementation report as at the 3rd quarter of last year, which is 2017. Now, if you look at that, you will see that there are significant gaps between budget and actuals. So that has always been the problem. So have we been too optimistic in our estimates, in our proposals? Or are there sources of leakages? Are there revenue sources that are not captured? So your news was reporting yesterday and this morning 8 trillion naira from revenue generated agencies that did not report into the Federation account. So
in spite of the TSA?
In spite of the TSA. So there are a lot of questions to ask. There are questions around excess crude, for example. The latest statistic we have is that there is $2.3 billion or so in there. But we know that for the most part of last year, crude oil prices had traded at an average of $55 per barrel. And we had a budget estimate of 44.5. So that's $10.50 on every single barrel. You know, Chamberlain, I did the numbers. That will translate to almost $7 billion. But yet, our excess crude account has 2.3. Even the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is really where all these excesses above the benchmark should report, only has $1.5 billion.
It's not reporting there.
So where is it?
Huge leakages, in fact.
Indeed.
So what do we do about the structure, just so that all this, should I say leakages, or should I say monies that are not remitted? What kind of structure do you think? Where are the faults such that we're able to get it right? And so, because this will have a heavy impact if we had this in the kitty of the government, to have a heavy impact on the budgeting system.
Absolutely, Gimba. Look, 8 trillion between 2010 and 2015. That's an average of 1.6 trillion a year. We're awaiting the 2016 numbers, we're awaiting the 2017 numbers. I don't expect to see any departure from that trend. So we probably will be talking about a figure in the range of 11, 12 trillion naira. So the question is this: the laws are very clear. Every single naira generated by federal government, ministries, departments, and agencies must report statutorily to a central collection account. As at today, or literally for the last 7 years, that has not been happening. So it means that government has been working outside of the laws of the land, right? And the simple matter of even the excess crude oil, excess crude account that I mentioned, courts have pronounced that account to be illegal. Government, or there is now a sovereign wealth fund, a sovereign wealth investment agency created by law. And statutorily, every single dollar above that benchmark should report to that account. But that is not the case. So it is important that we, the people, continue to take government to task and say, shine a lot of light in some of these areas, that there is a fair degree of opacity. So it is about communication, it is about presenting information accurately and on time.
So we have a budget that's now, it's not yet been signed though, that's now 9.1 trillion or thereabout, increased. Now, there are those who argue that it looks as if our budgets are always increased, never reduced. And then we have agencies that are not remitting to the government coffers.
Correct.
We're at a point where, as some will say, we're between the devil and the deep blue sea. What do we do? I mean, what should the government be doing? Now, you said the citizens should hold the government accountable.
Correct.
But what should those in the corridors of power, and those in authority or agencies be doing?
Well, Nelta, the reality is this, or the simple fact is this. People who have been elected to govern us must, at the very least, do what they have been elected into office to do. You know, there is a lot of things that are not open and transparent. You know, so inside of this conversation, let me also throw something else into the mix. There is the whole question around subsidy. So the Senate Committee on Appropriation has said, inside of this, our adjusted budget of 9 trillion, we have not factored in subsidy. We have also not factored in the possibility of a minimum wage increase. Gentlemen, there is a general election next year, so there is a strong likelihood it is politically expedient to pass an increase in minimum wage. Our budget estimates have not reflected that. Subsidy, even the GMD of the NNPC had said a few months ago, we are spending $774 million a day, or naira, I'm sorry, a day on petroleum subsidy.
Which is not captured in the 2017 budget.
At all, which was even when oil prices were averaging 65. Now it is tending to $80, which means that the landed cost of petrol into Nigeria is no longer the 177 that triggered 774 billion a day. It is probably far in excess of that. This budget does not capture it because the Senate committee says the official policy of government is that subsidy has ended. But we all know with each increase in the price of petroleum crude oil, definitely the landed cost of imported petrol into Nigeria has gone up. Who is bearing that cost? Which account is it coming out from? The long-term impact is that we're playing a game of cat and mouse. We're trying to hide behind one finger to say there is no subsidy, but we all know. So bottom line, if a lot of the resources that should go into critical infrastructure, a lot of the resources that should go into salaries and wages of people who are working, right? If those resources have to be channeled to plug the cost of importing petroleum into Nigeria, then it means that government will start to struggle to deliver on the so-called dividends of democracy, because the funding required to make those things happen is not as it should be.
But then the conversation from the Ministry of Petroleum about the end of importation by 2019 or thereabout, you don't think it's feasible? Well,
I know that there are a lot of initiatives around local refining capacity. The most prominent one is the proposed Dangote refinery.
And hopefully some modular ones as well.
And hopefully some modular ones. So my sense is the sooner we have local refining capacity, the better for us as a country, as a people. Because the cost of importing petroleum products into Nigeria is way too high. And there is also, you know, a lot of opacity. At one point, the minister, well, the GMD was saying our consumption is 50 million liters a day. Now, that is suspect to say the least. The Senate yesterday was talking about a figure of 65 million liters a day consumption. It is totally impossible. And all that is simply happening is because petroleum products are cheap in Nigeria and expensive across the West African sub-region, petrol is coming into Nigeria and it is finding its way into the sub-region, where the people bringing it in are making a kill, because our petrol products are not reflective of the cost of it landing in Nigeria.